Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
F. What you're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making.
It's the 30-something movie podcast. Hoo-ah! I think we're going to say that a lot this episode. That's going to get repeated a lot. I think, doesn't he? I didn't count it, but I read somewhere, I think he says it like 10 times in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Has anyone ever told you look exactly like Al Pacino? You know, Scent of a Woman? Hoo-ah! Hoo-ah!
Very good. Very good. You know something? Nothing for you!
This one is Scent of a Woman. And
Yes.
if you haven't figured it out already, the scent of my co-hosts, that you're not going to get that through an audio podcast. And I don't really even know how I would describe how you gentlemen smell. That's just weird. I don't know where to go with that.
Before
Yeah.
And I can't even quote the scene where he talks about smelling a woman's hair because, I mean, this is not a video podcast, but between the three of us, we've probably got 2 Homer Simpson hairs.
Yes.
So, yeah. All right. Well, the Bald Patrol is here tonight, and we're here to talk about Scent of a Woman. Pat, how are you doing?
Great. Outstanding, John. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm here. We're all fine here
That's
now.
awesome. Yeah. Dennis.
Dennis, how's it going?
Hoo-ah. That's how I'm doing.
There you go. Well, we just want to let you know that we do spoil freely here, so we're just going to talk. We'll start talking about movies. If we start talking about a movie you haven't seen and you want to just skip ahead 10 or 20 seconds, go for it, because this is kind of the only warning. Visit our website, 30podcast.com. That is 30podcast.com. You can leave us a rating, leave us a voicemail. You can find all of our past episodes, of which there are a plethora. There are over 400 other episodes that are there for your listening pleasure. You can also become a co-executive producer of the show via Patreon. If you want to go to 30podcast.com, and then there is a donate tab up along the top up there. There are some different tiers where you could join us for an episode. You could pick a movie for us to talk about, or donating or supporting us at any level gets you access to all the bonus episodes that are over there. And we have approximately, at this point in time, a little over 20 episodes, I think, over there. So lots of good bonus stuff for you over there. And we appreciate every single one of you that is supporting us over there. Just helps keep the show running, helps us make some improvements here and there over time. And so just thank you so much for all of that support from all of you. We thank you very, very much from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes.
That's technical improvements. We can't improve content all the time though, but technical improvements.
That's true. It kind of depends on the movie we're talking about, but yeah, it's the technical improvement.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. All right. I think we're just going to jump right into the movie. You guys got anything else? Anything that's on your conscience that you need to share before we jump into Scent of a Woman?
No.
I'm
good, man. Green light.
I will say real quick, I forgot to mention this last week. I did start a little bit of a thing on Twitter, and it's been kind of fun to watch it go. There was a little bit of friendly arguing back and forth as to what year is the best year in the 80s for movies.
Oh my gosh.
A little bit of an argument over that. Is it 84? Is it whatever? So I jumped in. This is going to be fun. Let's do this. And I know you guys really aren't on Twitter, so you haven't been in on this conversation. So what I did was, every couple of days or so, I will post something up on Twitter, and I'll share it out with the Shirley podcast guys, the Docking Bay 77 guys, some of the other podcasts that we kind of have done some stuff with, or we kind of help retweet each other's stuff on Twitter, a film by those guys. And so what I put out was, I said, let's start with the 1920s. So today, 1920s, what's the best year for movies in the 1920s? And then everybody started voting on what their favorite year. And I shared Letterboxd has a really good way of searching by decade or searching by year, so you can see what came out in those years. And then I was okay, great. We got everybody's favorites so far from the voting from the 1920s. Next up, 1930s. What's the best year for movies in the 1930s? And then everybody votes on their favorite year. So what I'm going to do eventually, I think as of today, we're in the 1960s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect up everybody's favorite year from each decade, and then I'm going to start forcing them to vote on like those years.
Oh,
so taking
there you go.
What they voted from the 1920s, the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, and it definitely gets more challenging the closer we get to today. Some of the 1920s, it was, well, there's this one or two movies, just because there weren't as many movies.
Sure.
Like, yeah, there's one or two movies in the 1920s in this year that I like, or this one. 1930s got a little bit tougher. 40s started to get really 50s was kind of a clear choice. Most everybody voted on the same thing. But yeah, so far, and this will probably all be resolved by the time this episode comes out, but so far my winners are 1927, 1931, 1941, and 1954.
Okay.
So those are kind of our years so far. And that's 31, you're hitting up Dracula and the Spanish Dracula, and 41, you're getting Citizen Kane and you're getting some of those movies. 54 was Godzilla, and God, I'm gonna blank out on what 54 was, but it had so many great ones. But yeah, so it's just kind of been fun to watch everybody kind of do this back and forth of, well, I'm picking this year because of this, this, and this, and I'm picking this one because of so on and so forth.
Right. Nice.
So yeah,
starting a little feud on Twitter. Not feud. A little challenge.
A little friendly challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because 54, I mean, you've got Rear Window, White Christmas, Seven Samurai. That was one I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Godzilla.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 50s was kind of easy. I think everybody agreed. Jeff even chimed in on there too, and he voted 54 because of Rear Window. But I think it was pretty quick that everybody agreed 54 was the strongest year of the 50s.
Yeah, there you go.
So curious to see what everybody says about 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. But yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
I think it's time for Scent of a Woman.
Yes.
This one came out on the 23rd of December, 1992, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 36 minutes. Directed by Martin Brest, who did Midnight Run, Beverly Hills Cop, and Meet Joe Black. Writers for this one are Giovanni Arpino, who wrote the novel. He died in 1987. Bo Goldman wrote the screenplay. Ruggero Macari did the 1974 Italian version. He died in 1989. Dino Risi also wrote the 1974 version. He died in 2008. Arpino also did The Forbidden Room and The Young Nun. Goldman did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Meet Joe Black. Macari did The Family and I Know Her Well. And Risi did The Treasure of San Gennaro and Il Sorpasso. Martin Brest is the producer for this one as well. Also did Midnight Run and Meet Joe Black. Music was done by Thomas Newman, who did The Lost Boys, The Shawshank Redemption, and Skyfall. Cinematography done by Donald E. Thorin, who died in 2016. He did The Golden Child and Tango and Cash. Editors for this one were Harvey Rosenstock, William Steinkamp, and Michael Tronick. Rosenstock did Tombstone and Kiss the Girls. Steinkamp did Tootsie and Out of Africa. And Tronick did Days of Thunder and Remember the Titans. Budget for this one was $31 million. Box office was $134.1 million. Flickmetrics gives it a 72%. And that's kind of a breakdown that combines Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Letterboxd. And that's one of those where the average doesn't really kind of reflect how far those different scores swing, because it's a 72 average between the four different ones. And of the four that are on here, the critic score for Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic was pretty low. It was a 68 on Rotten Tomatoes. It was a 59 on Metacritic. But then you get to IMDb and Letterboxd, and IMDb was an 80% and Letterboxd was a 78%, I think. So that 72 is Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic are bringing down the IMDb and the Letterboxd. So a little bit of a swing there for how people felt about it. CinemaScore gives it an A. So CinemaScore was typically people actually seeing the movie, leaving the theater, are polled on how they felt about the movie, and they give it a score, a school score, a grade, A through F, and so CinemaScore gives this one an A. This movie is starring Al Pacino as Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade. He was in Serpico, The Godfather, and Dick Tracy. Chris O'Donnell was Charlie Sims. He was in Batman Forever, The Three Musketeers, and Vertical Limit. James Rebhorn, who died in 2014, played Mr. Trask. He was in Independence Day, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and The Game. Gabrielle Anwar played Donna. She was in The Three Musketeers and the TV series Burn Notice and The Tudors. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who died in 2014, played George Willis. That's Jr., not Senior. He was in Capote, Twister, and The Big Lebowski. Richard Venture, who died in 2017, played W.R. Slade. He was in Courage Under Fire and Heartbreak Ridge. Bradley Whitford played Randy. He was in The West Wing and Get Out. Rochelle Oliver played Gretchen. She was in Law & Order and Hollywood Ending. Margaret Edgington, or Eggington, I'm not sure how you pronounce that one. She played Gail. She was in 6 Degrees of Separation. Tom Reese Farrell played Gary. He was in Almost Famous and Sleepless in Seattle. Nicholas Sadler played Harry Havemeyer. If there's ever a pretentious Ivy League name, it's Harry Havemeyer. He was in Twister, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Todd Luiso played Trent Potter. He was in High Fidelity and Jerry Maguire. Matt Smith played Jimmy Jameson. He was in The Altruist and Meet the Mosaics. Gene Canfield played Manny. He was in Sea of Love and Meet Joe Black. And Frances Conroy played Christine Downs. She was in The Joker and The Aviator. Frank is a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. He's blind and impossible to get along. Charlie is at school and looking forward to going to college. To help pay for a trip home for Christmas, he agrees to look after Frank over Thanksgiving. Frank's niece says, easy money, but she didn't quite reckon on Frank spending his Thanksgiving in New York City and taking Charlie with him.
Hi, Mrs. Rossi. I'm here about the weekend job.
Come on in.
They put him in a veteran's home, but he hated it.
Colonel's a gentleman.
A real hero.
This is some guy.
Down deep, the man is a lump of sugar.
Get in here, you idiot. What do you want?
What do you mean, what do I want?
What do you want here?
I want a job.
Job.
I promise you an easy $300.
I don't get an easy feeling.
How's your skin, son? I'm my age to be presentable.
Well, I've had a few zits, but my roommate, he let me his clinic because he's from Chestnut Hill, and he's got
The History of My Skin by Charles Sims. Get out my dress blues. They're in a garment bag in the closet.
Are we going someplace, Colonel?
What business is that of yours? Don't shrug, you imbecile. I'm blind. Our destination is New York City.
I'm just gonna have to turn right around and come back.
Charlie's having a difficult weekend. How does he look? He's holding up.
Oh, he looks fine to me.
Don't think I can't see women, because I can't see women.
Boy, you have a one-track mind.
Women are the essence of life. She's wearing Flores. Fleur de Rocaille, Ogilvy Sisters soap.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm in the amazing business.
I should be getting back to school.
Ooh. I don't think you're gonna make it.
You said that the last shuttle leaves at 10 o'clock.
I lied. All I want is one last tour of the battlefield.
You're just in a slump right now.
How would you know, watching MTV all your life?
Ooh. From Martin Brest, director of Midnight Run and Beverly Hills Cop.
Make your own rules, be your own board of governors, pay your own dues. I don't know whether they shoot you or adopt you.
It's not much of a choice, is it, sir?
Al Pacino. Chris O'Donnell. Scent of a Woman.
What a marvelous place.
What do I got? What do I got? I got what an effect not using the film soundtrack in the trailer has for misrepresenting what the movie's feel is. That's kind of what I got. You know what I'm saying?
We've noticed that quite a bit lately with some of these movie trailers.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened in the 90s, but this was this kind of a little bit more dudes cruising, kind of kind of this kind of funky kind of thing. That was totally not what the music was. It
sounds like I should be watching a Tom Hanks movie if you listen to the music.
Yeah, and it totally, I don't want to say misrepresented, but it was a head fake for which direction the movie really goes. So I don't know. So what do I got? My initial reaction after watching the trailer was, well, that's not the right. That's not, no. There is no Dana, the only Zool. What do I got about the movie? Are we doing our initial questions?
Yeah, go for it. How's the movie make you feel, and when was the first time you saw it?
I saw it, I think, back in 1992. My parents went out to the theater to see it, and then were like, you guys have to see it, because they talked about it a whole bunch. The movie makes me feel good. A movie with a lot of heart makes me feel. I saw it when it came out. I try to see it or bits and pieces of it at least every year. And this was my first introduction to Al Pacino. This is the first thing I saw him in. And I remember watching the Oscars and him getting the best actor for this, and rewatching it. It's, for me, it's, yeah, that's why. At the time, I remember them saying that he'd been passed over for so many other, that this was kind of, he won for this and for all the ones that maybe he missed out on. I don't know about that. And I don't even know how. I was a kid, so maybe I heard one commentary and suddenly that became what everyone said. But I remember him winning for this. And like I said, as I rewatch this movie, I just continually see why. And the movie, it warms my heart. It's a great film.
Yeah. I agree. That's pretty much mine too. I mean, I would have said the same thing. It's a fun, I was thinking of it as being a fun, heartwarming story, even though he's such a jerk at the beginning of the movie. It is just, he's so hard to even listen to. And especially having seen it before several times, he's going to start to grow on him, and he's going to kind of soften a little bit. And the kid, Charlie, is going to get to know him a little bit better. So that's all going to get worked out. But it's just, I mean, his character, especially from the get-go, is just kind of tough. Tough to watch, tough to listen to. This one I did not see as early as you did. I want to say probably high school was the first time I saw this movie. I've seen it several times since then. But yeah, so I was a little bit older when I saw this for the first time and enjoyed it then. I think I want to say there was probably a stretch of time where I was picking a bunch of, I would usually get on these little kicks of, I'm going to watch 3 or 4 Al Pacino movies, or I'm going to watch 3 or 4 movies with this person, or whatever. So I think there was a stretch of time where this was one of those, I'm on an Al Pacino kick, so let's catch some of his movies, and ended up watching this one. So.
Well, and I might be aging myself slightly, but I just passed the qualifications for high school when this came out. So
okay.
So I'm and
that's right. Well, like you say 92, and I'm thinking I'm a few years younger than you are. So
right, and that's the age where a few years is a gap, whereas now a few years is nothing. So, but I mean,
right? Like I would have been 12 when this movie came out.
Right, and I think seeing it as a 12-year-old, probably not.
Yeah,
but seeing it as a 15-year-old,
yeah.
So, anyways, yes.
Yeah. Dennis, what about you?
I saw it once in its entirety. I've seen parts throughout the years. I liked it from what I remember back then. I liked it. My family liked it. We watched it. I think it's, again, probably one of the family movies at this time. Pretty much everything was, because you had pretty much one TV, one VCR. I did not see it at the theater. And yeah, Al Pacino fan, and I think it's a great movie. It's just weird that I haven't seen it in its entirety. And I did start it just now over the weekend, and I got about a little more than halfway through.
Okay.
But not get to finish it. So I have but it jarred a lot of memory and things like that. And I have some questions now too that I probably didn't have back then, which maybe we'll get into.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I want to start off by kind of just going through a general sense of the movie and the story and all that other stuff. But the funny thing is, watching this movie, the whole time I'm watching it, this is making me think of, I have a question for Pat. When we do the podcast, I have a question for Pat, specifically for Pat. And it's because of a recording we did for a completely different movie. I have a question for Pat a little bit later on. So,
now I'm nervous, man.
So buckle up, Pat.
Oh.
Do you think that this is a white savior narrative, Pat? I'm just wanting to know if you think.
Yeah. I think it is, John. I think it is.
All right.
And I think we just got to take the movie as it is 30 years later.
I can't believe I didn't bring that up during Last of the Mohicans. God.
There's
man,
bears.
I'm killing myself now.
There's bears. Do we want to poke the bears?
Well, we could. So this movie, and the basic premise of this movie is you've got the preppy school kids, and you've got the one who he is not as well to do as the other kids. He's there on a scholarship, and he's got a bit of a dilemma. So that kind of becomes the, I don't know if you want to consider that the B story of it. The B story is he's got this dilemma where he saw something that was the beginning of a prank. The prank got pulled off. The nice car that the headmaster of the school had got paint all over it. And
why did he try to pop the balloon?
I don't know.
I'm just, as he's jumping, it's just be okay, guys, back the car out, park it somewhere else.
At that point, why don't I move the car? And then after I move the car, why don't I try popping the balloon?
Yeah. I've done 8th grade lunch duty, right? I mean, there's many pitfalls there that were.
This is maybe that's a sign of how out of touch he is, because if he works with children, he should know better.
Yeah.
So anyway, this prank takes place, car gets ruined, and basically he decides he's going to set up the Spanish Inquisition because nobody would expect it. And he ends up kind of pulling two of the boys. One of them is George Willis Jr., definitely not senior, and the other one is Charlie Sims. And he's going to kind of lean on them heavily, with the idea being that he's really going to try to squeeze some information out of Charlie, because Charlie is the one with the most to lose here. So that's kind of, we established that pretty early on. And then the main part of the story, even before this whole prank thing happened, was Charlie trying to get a job over Thanksgiving so that he can make some money, so that he actually has money to be able to travel home for Christmas time. So, and he does that by finding a notice on a bulletin board for kind of for lack of a better term, babysitting somebody over the course of the Thanksgiving holiday so that their family can, go travel, because he doesn't want to. And it ends up being that he is, again, for lack of a better term, babysitting Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade, who is blind and feisty, and unbeknownst to Charlie, is headed to New York City and taking him with him.
Yes.
The first couple things I want to say about this one is and I looked on his IMDb, and actually there's really not that many, but I just think of him that way. This is the first time, I believe, it's one of his earliest roles, that Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the pretentious, preppy school kid. And for some reason in my mind, that guy has played like a dozen of those roles. And then I went and looked in his IMDb, and it's maybe 3 or 4. But he plays that character so well.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I picture Philip Seymour Hoffman. Now, obviously, in his later movies, he branches out and does all kinds of other things. But I don't know. To me, he was in Patch Adams, wasn't he? He was one of the doctors that kind of opposed Robin Williams' character. And I don't know. He just always came across as the pretentious, preppy, I know more than you, I'm better off than you kind of a character. And so for years, that's just how I thought of him as an actor. I, in my brain, typecast him as the prep school kid. But
he's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, and brings it. He really adds a lot. The stuff I've seen. I mean, Brandt and The Big Lebowski. He's one of the bad guys in Mission Impossible, Hunger Games. I mean, he adds a whole lot to the films that he's in.
So one of the interesting things about this movie, and I saw this on some different IMDb and some of the other trivia pages, is, I mean, this is, Al Pacino won an award for this.
Yes.
He won the Oscar for this.
Was it his only Oscar?
Yeah, I think it wasn't it? So he won the Oscar for this. One of the really interesting things is, originally, this was not offered, Al Pacino was not their first choice. Did you guys read or see who their first choice was?
No.
Go ahead and say it. It was interesting.
First choice was Jack Nicholson.
I did pick that, so I could see that.
Okay. And when
you play back the tape, you'll hear me say Jack Nicholson. I seriously do not know that. It would just been my first guess because some of the character is I could see almost an as good as it gets kind of character.
That and Few Good Men.
Few Good Men as well, yeah. But
and this is one of those few times. Sometimes when we read that stuff and we're like, "Hey, do you know who they originally had in mind for this role?" It wasn't Bill Murray, it was John Belushi or something like that.
Right.
And most times when I hear that, I'm like, oh, well, that would have been a totally different movie. As soon as I read Jack Nicholson, actually, that wouldn't have been a totally different movie. I think that would have been just as good.
Yeah.
So I think for that one, I think they would have had a great movie on their hands either way.
Yeah,
I think so. I think they both could have pulled that off. Yeah, definitely.
Well, tell me when it's time to.
I wonder if Jack Nicholson could go as long as Pacino and not blinking.
Oh, yeah, maybe. He didn't
really blinking. He never blinks in this movie at all.
When is the time to start gushing about how amazing his acting is in this?
Right now, go for it.
I mean, my goodness. And I'll tell you, and boy, I am not the guy to analyze acting because I can't. But I always, from when I saw it when I was a kid, man, he really does. He doesn't look he's acting blind, right? He really just mannerisms, how he focuses with his eyes, just how he carries himself is just amazing. But then, and I always remembered a few of these cues when I was a kid, but then I'm looking at just how perceptive he is when Charlie's on the phone and all of a sudden he'll hear Charlie say something. Oh, I thought we were leaving our fathers out of this. And then suddenly his face will register that, right? Or at the end when he says, Mr. Willis, senior or junior? Senior or junior, sir. And he just slips in the sir. And then Al Pacino, you see him kind of smirk. Yeah, he knows the score here, right? The way he was able to do that and just bring the subtlety, not only of acting as a blind person, but just all the different levels of perception that Lieutenant Colonel Slade had, as well as he's going to commit suicide. And you can see the things that just depress him, right? The commentary, okay, your driving days are done after the situation with the car. And then all of a sudden you can see him, oh, dude, that crushed him. And there were a couple of things. And it's just very subtle where you can see how he's ready to take his own life. And it's just, my God, there are so many layers to this character that Al Pacino brings. And that's what I was saying earlier is every time I watch this, it's just that much more amazing how put together that character was. I mean, it is incredible. It is incredible.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I do remember this, and I remember watching this film and then going back, and what I did was I did a kind of it wasn't a Google search, but I remember my dad owned a copy of The Godfather, like Godfather 1, Godfather 2, all those. And I actually went back and put the video, and I remember doing this because I didn't believe it was the same guy, and I don't know why. I had a hard time believing it was the same guy from The Godfather. I don't know if I just had a gap of the age difference, or if it was the performance of how he's not wearing makeup. He's not doing this big transition into some we had talked about with Lincoln, with Daniel Day-Lewis, where there's a lot of layers there and you don't see him. Or the Batman, the Joker with Heath Ledger, where he disappears in that role. It's not that type of thing. I just couldn't see. I didn't believe. I don't know. At that age, it's not the same guy from The Godfather. I thought Al Pacino was the guy from The Godfather, and that was him. He looked so different, and I can't just say he looked old. He just if you listen to the character, he just acts so different. It's such a different personality from the quieter sort of character in The Godfather. And it makes him almost look a different person altogether without any makeup. Mm-hmm. And I literally remember looking back at that, and I always had a hard time. Not that I would confuse De Niro with him, but sometimes I confuse De Niro and Al Pacino. Al Pacino or De Niro? De Niro or Al Pacino? Who's in this movie? But for whatever reason, I remember looking back because I did not believe that Al Pacino in that current movie, was the same guy who was in The Godfather. I don't know why at that age, but I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So, and it's literally just all done on personality in the role. I mean,
yeah.
We said it's not makeup involved. I mean, yeah, there's some age that helps where he ages, but it's just the stare, the eyes, the no blinking, the performance itself makes Al Pacino disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or at least the Godfather character.
Well, you mentioned before about him not blinking during this movie, and it was a couple things in the trivia sections was that he kind of consulted with a school for the blind to help prepare for this, and one of his ways of appearing blind was he really tried to not allow his eyes to focus on anything, and that he was constantly staying in character. We talked last week about Daniel Day-Lewis, who really gets into his characters before he starts filming and while he's filming. Al Pacino was the same way. They said when he was off the set, he was still using his cane to walk, not looking at anybody when they talked to him, that kind of stuff, to really kind of stay in character and practice that sense of not really visually focusing on any one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we go through the bulk of the movie is they're taking this trip to New York. He kind of says it's his one last tour, and Charlie doesn't really know what's going on. Colonel Slade is talking about, well, he's going to go, visit family. He's going to have a great meal. He's going to spend a night with a woman. He's going to do all this stuff. And then he just kind of casually says, and then I'm going to lay down and blow my brains out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little heavy for a high school kid to be dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where you said, Pat, the music that's in that trailer, that don't fit.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, and it doesn't represent the heart in this movie.
Right. Exactly. And that's I think the perfect wording for it. There is a lot of heart in this movie, but it's not happy-go-lucky buddy road trip heart. It's more of this movie always just has a very, especially from that moment. Well, I think really from the moment you meet that you meet Colonel Slade, it's just this movie has a weight to it. That just it's not a joyful romp. It's not anything that I think even at the beginning of the movie when they have the whole thing of the prank and the headmaster trying to figure out who did it and all that other stuff, I don't think that really feels as heavy as it does later when you start to realize, oh, well, Charlie's entire future could be impacted by this whole thing. I still think it still feels, I don't know, maybe it's the whole like prep school setting and stuff like that. It kind of feels lighthearted, at least to me watching it. It felt lighthearted until you meet Colonel Slade. And then you have some moments of, wow, this guy's a really grouchy guy, but they're going to go on an adventure together. It's all going to be fine. But the moment he drops that line, then I'm going to lay down and blow my brains out. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
All right. The movie just went to a different level now.
Yeah. And when you go and rewatch, like I said, when you pick up the breadcrumbs of all the hints and you can see him just that depression, he's just in a bad spot. And his injury, it had happened 10, 15, 20 years before. They seem to make it sound relatively recent, right? Yeah. Within 4 or 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's interesting that when he makes that, I was going to try to find the quote so I could get the right wording for it. When he makes that comment to Charlie, when Charlie's kind of dealing with the struggle of what do I do? I've got that when Slade finally finds out what Charlie's problem is back at the school, and he makes that comment, here it is. He's like, Charlie, about your little problem. There are two kinds of people in this world: those who stand up and face the music, those who run for cover. Cover is better. He makes that comment, and then when you find out later how he was struck blind, it's going back to that. It's like two kind of people: those who stand up and face the music, and those who run for cover. Cover is better, and that's him obviously regretting that he did something that, could have caused more people worse than an injury, but that's what left him the way he is.
Well, and that's what he said is that, basically the same thing, but he said there's people that stay and people that go. I reached the crossroads in my life and I always took the wrong choice.
Yeah.
Right. He makes mention of that. And that's the beauty of this story is that you see they help each other out. He has the heart and he's the one that has that innocent, I'm going to do the right thing that helps get him through. And I mean, you said a high school kid, he runs and goes and wrestles a gun out of this guy's hand. Yeah. I mean, and in the same token, he is so, Lieutenant Colonel Slade is so well-traveled and well-versed and streetwise and educated. He's able to help Charlie out. Right. And not only showing him the finer points of life, and man, he knew the finer points of life, but just he was a really squared away and kind of, when you imagine the I don't want to say stereotypical bad thing, but an officer in the military that's a career military person, it's squared away at, right? My dress blues are right here. You will get this many of this thing at this time, and everything is so that they really they were able to bring out the best in each other, which is why I think the story was just so strong.
So one of the things that kind of confused me a little bit as I was watching it this time, and I was trying to figure out, well, is he being honest? Is he being sarcastic? I'm not 100% sure here. And I know I've seen this movie several times, but this time I really can't tell. The advice he was trying to give Charlie, when he's trying to tell Charlie how to deal with his problem, do you go to the headmaster and you say, well, it's these three guys did it. And I'm going to tell you these three guys did it because, frankly, if I don't, they've got their dads and their dad's lawyers and other people on their side. They are going to be protected. I'm the one who's got the most to lose. I just need to go reveal who these people were. As he's giving him that advice, do you feel he is actually giving him that advice to go tell? Or is he saying that, but really trying to get Charlie to see that maybe you don't tell? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What's he advising Charlie to do? What did you take away that he's advising Charlie to do? Is he advising Charlie, look, you are at a disadvantage here because of your financial situation. You have to go tell. Or is Charlie being the more, I don't know, quote unquote, honorable person by not ratting on his friends?
So you're saying that using some reverse psychology type of thing?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I would say no to that. I don't think so. I think that Charlie is if you want to call it morally superior, but that seems a stretch. But because I have questions about what he did and why he did it, and then is this a lesser of two evils decisions? And is it the bribe that makes this a more noble because he used the word integrity and courage? And I don't know. I've struggled with this one because of I mean, obviously we're teachers and in education, and if kids saw somebody else do something, I would deem the kid with integrity as the kid who does tell. But in this case, it's sort of I hate to use the comparison, but I think there's a comparison to this kind of the street don't snitch type of thing. If some crime happens, there's certain times where no one talks to the police. There's a certain code of you just don't talk and rat on someone.
This is why I told Pat I had a question for him, because he made a point back in I'll get the number for you, back on episode number 306. All right, Pat, I'm going back and I'm quoting you. Well, not quoting you, but back on, so I told you to buckle up. Episode 306 was our Goodfellas episode.
Mm-hmm.
And Pat made a point several times during that episode. You repeated the Jimmy Conway line. You took your first pinch of man and you learned the two greatest things in life. Never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. Does that advice apply to Charlie Sims in this movie?
Well, they're not as friends.
Okay.
They're not as friends, but on the other thing, you always keep your mouth shut. He's got a lot to lose all the way around with this, right? I mean, he could sit there and point these guys out. What are the repercussions that he's going to have to deal with? And I think that's like you said, Dennis, you want it to be on a level that we're all teachers that, if you saw something, if you see something, say something. But on the flip side, a lot of times when kids want to step up, that's hard for kids to do, to step up. A lot of times kids will be like, I don't want my name mentioned.
He's talking about to step
Pardon
up.
me?
It would require the courage.
It would require the trust in whoever you're stepping up to handle it the right way. The kid comes up to me, look, I don't want my name in this. I'm kind of scared of those guys. Whatever it is. And they got to have the trust that I'm, as the teacher, going to do the right thing. And I don't know, was the headmaster a trustworthy guy at that?
Well,
to keep it quiet?
The headmaster makes it harder. And this is where it really makes me think, because in my opinion, when Slade gets up and defends him, if you notice, he does even, I think at one point he says even that, I don't know if he's right or wrong, but he's not going to, he was saying it was integrity, not on the intent. And I think that this is where I don't know if people walk away, if a teenager or a high schooler who saw this Would the lesson be you just don't rat on your friends and that's integrity and courage? Because I don't think that's exactly what it is. I think the fact that there was a bribe attached to his talking is what changes the morality of this and almost puts it into a lesser of two evils in the sense that if he snitches or tells now, is it because he wants to move ahead and get this bribe and take advantage of it? In it kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't position at this point. Whereas if the headmaster did not bribe him and just said, hey, do the right thing, would he have told?
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And what twists this and makes this a little bit more of a dilemma than you think, because again, what's the motivations of him talking or versus not talking? Is it to protect himself from also the effects of, like you said, the negative consequences? Because would he have gotten the same applause had he told that he got from the standing ovation audience of all his peers had he told? So does that make that right or wrong based on their response, or was he doing that so that he didn't get the repercussions of the negative peer interaction? I mean, he wasn't, like you said, friends with those kids. I'm sure there's a lot of kids with power and money who would not have liked him after that, probably, for telling. Are you able to negotiate the prank itself? It's, in other words, if you saw somebody, God forbid, beat up or rape somebody and you don't say anything, does that morality still apply? Or is it just because this was a harmless prank with a balloon, so therefore the crime isn't as serious, and no one seemed to this headmaster anyway? Does that make it? And obviously, for it seems justifiable reasons, because the guy seems to like this. Well, what would I say? The establishment, the school system, or the powers that be, already seem somewhat broken. The fact that he's willing to offer a bribe to get what he wants. So are you betraying somebody who has that lack of morality by not helping them out and telling them? I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. There's just a lot in here, because I feel, again, if we told this story to a kid, I feel he might walk away with not pondering that, because I probably didn't ponder it back then when I saw this. And I probably I remember being a little bit conflicted of, wait a second, though, shouldn't you have told? I thought we're always told if you see somebody do something wrong, that the strong and courageous thing is to step up and say something. But again, the connection is now you have this bribe that throws it for a
right. And I mean, and see, that's the thing, is it's got, there's more nuance to it, right? They don't give you the easy out.
And I think that's,
and that whole thing of, hey, no matter what, speak up. Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're talking about a rape or someone getting hurt, that's a different issue. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that seemed to be what you implied as well.
A far-fetched thing in terms of in terms of degree of severity. But I'm saying, therefore, is the principle of honest and everything else, is that a integrity principle? Like, I think most people would say is being honest would be integrity. And you're military, aren't you? I know I'm military stuff, I think, but I mean, isn't there a code of conduct at some of these very astute college or places or military part about? I'm trying to think of a few good men too, but if you know something, is the courageous thing to do is to right the wrong, or to serve justice or fairness when you know, or is it to?
I think within this,
if an integrity trait, when is it negotiable? And you had just said I think you said earlier on, again, not putting words in your mouth, but I thought you said something along the lines of he didn't know these kids really well. So my thing,
I didn't see him as,
see them do something wrong. Is it morally right to not tell them? But if they're not your friends, I'll go tell on them. I think we do that with ethical dilemmas. Right. Advisory. I said, what if you saw a kid steal someone's wallet or their phone from a locker in the PE locker room? What would you do? The teacher said, hey, this kid lost their wallet. They had a bunch of money in it. And would you tell? And kids are like, yeah, the right thing to do, I would tell. Then you go, okay, the kid who stole it is your friend. He's your best friend. And you saw him steal the wallet. Now are you telling, well, now they're all, well, geez, I don't know. And I'm, wait a second. I thought you said honesty and integrity was as important, but now just because you know the person, you're not willing to do the same action you would have before. So I don't know where I'm going.
And it's
about pondering this one, but
it's easy to fall into absolutes. I mean, that's the problem. And when you say, oh, I do this 100 times out of 100, 10 times out of 10, I do this. And it's, yeah, well, what about this? Oh, yeah. It's when you add the nuance that does give you pause. I for the purpose of the movie, and I could be way off base, but for the purposes of the movie, it was more, they were setting him to be the fall guy. all the punishment was going to go on his head. And that was kind of the thing that made it the big cheering at the end, where they're setting this kid up. And to be honest, the guy came across looking vindictive. What I'm saying? And so
that's what the kid knew something about who
this wasn't someone going up and saying, "Hey man, this thing really happened and someone got hurt and all this." We really, the crime dramas where we need you to stand up so we can bust the gang members or take this guy down or get the person that's been attacking women off the street or something. It wasn't this. It was a prank. And he knew darn well who the three kids were that needed to be punished, right? Everybody knew who it was. And they know that, what's his name? George Willis.
Yeah.
They know that he saw, right? Everybody could see, you could see that a mile away. But I think that the way they set it up in the movie was everybody else had an out.
Yeah.
Everybody else had an out. And that was why Charlie, facing the music and the integrity, he didn't use an out. He's okay. I'll go stand in trial. And that was the other thing. They brought everybody in. I mean, it was a show. They brought everybody in, and they're just setting this kid up because he interviewed George Willis. There were a couple of strong words. Okay, well, I can't punish you, but because you didn't have your contacts in or whatever. And then the three guys in the audience that we know, everybody knew that they did it, but we can't punish them. But I expected you to stand up. And it was, do you think that the headmaster had his back? And so that whole thing, John, going back to that quote, never ratting on your friends. And I, when we talked about Goodfellas, I put the disclaimer in there that, well, for me, unless we're going to go through
whatever, but if the friend was just vandalizing something.
If the friend was just vandalizing something?
Yeah. So he vandalized someone's property.
So
serious enough to tell, or is that now?
I get what you're getting at, but it's how but how much can I trust who I'm telling? In this case, how much trust did Charlie have in that establishment? Right? Yeah. They would have sold him up the river. He didn't. Yeah. Okay. They could have bribed him. Hey, we're going to give you this if you just finger these guys. And it's just, okay, well, what about George Willis? Oh, don't worry about him. They were setting him up to take the fall. And if you're sitting there in this school where the parents are supposedly as strong as they are, what's to say they're not going to come back and go after the school and everything and force to get their kids reinstated or whatever the heck it is. And then they go after Charlie.
It's almost like there's no moral or just obligation to a unjust system.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, and maybe I'm not standing up and facing the music, but I don't want to speak absolutes on hypotheticals. Give me a for instance, and I'll tell you, hey, yeah, I'm down with that, or no, I don't think so. You know what I'm saying?
Kid saw a prank. Mm-hmm. And the prank, just give me the same one for the movie. So my question is, do you think he did the moral thing? Was he acting in integrity or in courage, or was he not in the end in this movie? Do you have a clear walk away? I'm a bit muddled by it.
Yeah, and well, I think they address it. I don't know if his silence is right, but you're bringing him out, putting him up on this trial, you're going to expel him just because he's not fingering these kids, but you're not punishing the ones that actually did the crime. You're not punishing the guy that the dad is a big contributor to the school. Mm-hmm. So basically they were setting him to be the fall guy. I mean, that's kind of what I got to, is that he was being set up to be the fall guy. Whether he opened his mouth or he didn't open his mouth, he was being set up to be the fall guy. I mean, and so that's where I think the cheering at the end, and you feel that.
So was his decision ultimately the moral just decision, you think?
I don't know. I'll quote Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade. I don't know. I'm not the judge and jury.
John, what do you think?
I don't think
what do you tell your kids if you watch this movie?
Yeah.
With your son in a few years.
Well,
does he walk away and say, Dad, so I should never tell on anybody because that's bad?
Right.
Or is he walking away saying, because we're told by teachers and other people to.
But again, that's an absolute. Should he never tell?
Yeah. Just the question of if the Nazis are knocking at your door and they're asking if you're harboring any Jews in your basement, is it okay to lie at that point? Well, heck yeah, because the greater, good here is what's an unjust question by unjust people.
I don't know. Part of it seems to me because of the nature of the prank. Well, so here, if what gets dumped on the car and the headmaster is paint, and it's going to irreparably damage this car and this property and whatever, I think that's a little bit different than if it's just this, I don't know, maybe it's a giant balloon filled with yogurt or something, which you can wash off pretty easily. I think it depends a little bit on the nature of the prank. So if the prank is not destructive in any way, and it's just more embarrassing if it's kids pulling a prank and embarrassing an adult who in some ways deserves the embarrassment. That's where I kind of lean towards, all right, that's just kids being stupid. But if there's destruction of property, if someone is irreparably harmed, if it was something what happened to Slade, where he was kind of messing around with a prank with grenades and ended up going blind because of it and almost killing other people, that's definitely different. So yeah, in this situation, I think that you were talking about the broken system of the school is, why are you even giving this thing the attention that these kids probably wanted in the first place? By running this prank, I think you handle that in a completely different way. I don't think you blow this all up.
You would bribe him too. The fact that you bring that,
right?
Instead of appealing to doing the right thing,
right,
or a certain code of conduct or a certain code of ethics, he literally destroyed all code of ethics by offering, here, you get this for doing that. Yeah. So he almost took away the opportunity for him to be truly ethical, in my opinion, and doing the right thing with nothing to gain. Because now his answer is going to be clouded by, is he answering because he has something to gain? So therefore, you kind of handcuff his sense of, I guess, right or wrong at that point. And then he's got, if he says does he appear to everyone else as somebody who was just out to gain entry into, what was it, Harvard?
Right. And here's the other thing I'm going to say. Let's take it the other direction. I'm sure that you saw something. I'm going to pay you this money, pay you this bribe to say exactly what I need you to say. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now that's the flip side that's scary, because now it's just, oh, okay, well, they're bad guys. And when he was walking up, did he see them fill the balloon with paint? Did he see? Now he saw those guys messing around there, but that's it. And I mean, if we're talking court of law, and I'm not trying to say that those guys were angels because they were jerks, but he wasn't in on the prank. He was an accessory to it in the setup and everything. So now you got the headmaster saying, I need you to tell me this. Whatever the truth might be, I need you to tell me it was these guys, and you saw them set the whole thing up. I mean, that can be the slippery slope too, because then you have someone that's, I'll take a bribe. I'll say whatever you want me to say. What I'm saying, here's
what I think, Dennis. I think you were looking for earlier. I think you said it. The honor code at West Point.
Yeah, I was just thinking military type of thing.
It's so the official honor code at West Point is, quote, a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do.
Okay.
And I even found there was a story. This one website has a story related to this. In 1951, a cadet named George Holbrook offered his roommate, Brian Nolan, help on a math exam. Nolan went straight to the administration. They then had Nolan infiltrate the cheating ring to see how many people were involved. That August, 90 cadets were expelled, thanks largely to Nolan's snitching. Believe it or not, Nolan's a hero to a lot of people.
Whoa, 90.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cheating going on. Yeah. Okay, so and when was this? What time period?
That was 1951.
Okay. And they said he's a hero. Yeah, because, again, because I know there are certain institutions and certain private academic places and where code is big. I think the Emperor's Club, I think to those type of things of living your life right and justly and and doing the difficult thing when it's not easy. And that was you say this was West Point?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
it is, you said, it is ambiguous. And I mean, I remember when I first saw the movie too, it was the same thoughts. Okay, well, shouldn't he have said something? But as far as within this movie, what gets it for me and what I think with the cheering piece and all that, and you said, as you examine it and take pieces of it out, it does. It's, oh, this is interesting. But what gets it is that they kind of set him up, right? They were setting him up. They were trying to give him a bribe just to say whatever. And it was all so the headmaster could save face. Yeah. It wasn't, you said, appealing to a higher level of
morality or ethics. It was actually dragging it down into something dirty.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. So then does it cancel out his responsibility or does it cancel out his obligation to adhere to those integrity values of honesty because of the way now it's been basically dirtied?
And I mean, and here's the thing too, and
I feel it's I was thinking about it as a catch-22. I mean, to a degree.
Yeah.
And as far as Frank coming into this, Frank, I feel I think you asked that question about was he being not sarcastic, but somehow trying to get. I think that's Frank who he was, and Frank had made these consequences. I think that's also why a life examined type of thing is suicidal at this point, and has the weight of those things. And I think what he learns from Charlie is basically you have the situation, you do the best that you can, and kind of move forward. And in the end, it seems like he does that, where these choices were made. These are things he's done. And I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what that connection is.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, all the efforts he put into getting the bribed and all that kind of thing, I mean, that's, as opposed to bribing him, that's where you have that whole meeting and you tell everyone, hey, people saw things, we would like you to come forward. Here's why, blah, 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 blah. We're all bared men. We're on our honor, the whole thing. And then meanwhile, I mean, dust the light pole for fingerprints. If it's that big of a deal, and the vandalism and there's damage and there's all that kind of thing, examine the students' dormitories. Which students were out? Which students were, I mean, are there security cameras? Do you get what I'm saying? And I mean, if we start to get into the nitty gritty with it, you can see where different pieces of the story kind of fall apart and they acted in different ways. But I think if they all knew who was involved, why are they just going after Charlie? And the thing that I come back to was they're just setting him to be the fall guy.
Yeah. And doesn't Slade say something at the end about he has integrity and courage because he's not willing to rat on people for his own gain? Doesn't he say that?
Yes.
Either before or after he says about whether he's not sure if he's right or wrong, but at least he's not doing this to get his own. He could get a cush deal out of this, but he's not doing it, and that's integrity and that's courage.
As I came in here, I heard those words, cradle of leadership. Well, when the bow breaks, the cradle will fall, and it has fallen here. It has fallen. Makers of men, creators of leaders, be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here. I don't know if Charlie's silence here today is right or wrong. I'm not a judge or jury, but I can tell you this. He won't sell anybody out to buy his future. And that, my friends, is called integrity. That's called courage. Now, that's the stuff leaders should be made of. Now, I've come to the crossroads in my life. I always knew what the right path was. Without exception, I knew, but I never took it. You know why? Because it was too hard. Without exception, I knew. Or no, because it was too hard. Now, here's Charlie. He's come to the crossroads. He's chosen a path. It's the right path. It's a path made of principle that leads to character. Let him continue on his journey. You hold this boy's future in your hands, committee. It's a valuable future. Believe me. Don't destroy it. Protect it. Embrace it. It's going to make you proud one day. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
And Dennis, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? What you just said. The integrity is he's not selling someone else out to pad his pockets.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it changed. In a way, it would be almost nicer if there was another hour to the movie where they could really examine that more. But that's where it's almost the B story. What I'm saying? So you don't it's kind of the mile wide, inch deep thing almost. You don't really get to examine that moral conundrum.
Yeah. And so, though, in essence, then, does his decision save Slade?
Decision
to not rat on them for his own personal gain. Is it kind of a little bit of that Willy Wonka, so shines a good deed in a weary world? Somebody who's suicidal and hopeless and has made poor decisions himself and believes in the good again, or believes in something that's innocent and believes it's something that's not corruptible, and therefore gives him a second lease on life. And I don't know, because he was suicidal. Now all of a sudden he's not, by meeting this kid. So at some point this kid saved his life, not only physically by wrestling the gun away, but by the demonstration of his character and goodness, or at least what Slade perceives it to be. Is it enough? I mean, enough for him to come in and defend him and show up. He didn't have to. He's not his lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
He comes in and basically saves the kid, because then what would have happened if he doesn't show up and make that speech? Something's going down for that kid. That's not good. He's either going to buckle and cave, or he's going to, not buckle in and cave. And now he's suspended in this, or expelled. And in this case, he's not expelled. So he's able to kind of maintain based on his defense.
Yeah. And I mean, if that headmaster really cared about him, first call should have been to the parents. Hey, here's the situation. Yeah. You might want to be with your, and that's the pieces
they have to write that part to set it up to be. And again, right. I don't want to say it's not 12 Angry Men, but there's a certain vibe to in the end of, did they let somebody who was a murderer go free in 12 Angry Men? Is that decision ever really pondered? It's possible, but it's also possible that they didn't. They never let you know the answer of whether or not this was the right decision that they made. And I feel in the same thing. Is it the right, or is it the best decision in a rough situation?
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, this is,
therefore, is that Slade's thing too? Is he making the best decision to continue with life?
Yeah.
In a rough situation, because he's blind because of something he's done in the past. So is it ultimately the message of making something good out of something bad, or something, or not bad, but something that might be conflicted?
Colonel Slade doesn't believe in the no-win scenario.
But yeah, and as you said, as far as mouth shut, and you never rat on your friends, keep your mouth shut. A lot of that was with Goodfellas was tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But a lot of that also, I mean, how are you going to handle things? I mean, think of our own profession. Think of team meetings. How many times is it just, what is going on today? I remember I used to always get allowing kids to come to band lessons. There'd be admin. Hey, there's some teachers that never let kids go, right? Come on, tell us, who are the ones that are difficult? Now I could sit there and tell my admin and say, yeah, well, Mr. So-and-so and Miss So-and-so and Mr. So-and-so, they never let kids go. And this is and totally sell them down the river. I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to rat people out because I'm going to go work it out with them or whatever. You keep your mouth shut because what do I have to gain? I think that line is almost more of just hey, what do you have to gain? What good will come of this decision or that decision? I mean, what do you have to lose?
Kids will get to go play music.
Will they though? will they though?
People are held accountable, and that they have to let the kids come out and go to the lessons. Technically, you're allowing those teachers to rob those kids out of music time.
No, because the way I found the way it could work is you go work with the teacher and say, hey, we got a situation and how can we work this out? I've seen the other way. I've seen people say, oh, yeah, it's so-and-so and it's so-and-so. And then they get a talking to and then they're vindictive.
Well, man, this is super awkward then, because I used to complain that my kids would come back late from Mr. C's band lessons all the time.
That's it. That's it.
And I used to name your name every single time it happens. So this is
That's
awkward.
Right. That's right. I actually quoted that. I quoted that to
my class. I want to send to you for lessons that don't even take music.
I realize that. I do. Well, and so yeah.
There's a bunch of instruments lying around. Just go play something.
Yeah.
Just go sit in the band room and read a book.
The drum.
Just sit in the band room and read a book, kids.
Now, I will say, if this was a situation, he walked in and those three guys had someone from the girls' college in a room and were, you know what I'm saying, attacking her or raping her or something, that's a no-brainer. You don't keep your mouth shut then. The first, you got your phone out, you're calling, well.
So ethics are situational, which is, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I get into the definition, okay, ethics are situational, but morals are absolute, or what, you know, I don't know.
I brought up the Nazi thing. You got Nazis knocking at your door and they're asking are you harboring any Jews in your basement? What do you say? The moral answer is no. Because you're not protecting yourself, you're protecting someone else. You're not lying to gain advantage, you're lying for a greater good. Whereas, I mean, that's kind of how I see it. So again, what is I think motivation is huge. And I think that's why it's brought up in this, that his motivation isn't to gain access to Harvard that he can actually get. There is a broken system there, and he's not going to take part in that at this point once his hands are tied because you offer him help. Because now if his decision is made and he tries to make the just decision, there'd be people walking away saying that it was because I guess the only other ultimate answer is to say, and again, this is what I think I might have done, is I'm going to tell the truth, but I'm also not going to take any position at Harvard. I'm not going to accept that. And I'm going to call you out for offering that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, that would be the highest moral good in this situation. But you're talking about a teen kid here, and I think what he does is acceptable. I think, but the ultimate right would be to not only, if you want to go by that military code of West Point that John said, it would be to not only tell on those kids who did the prank, but it would also be tell on the headmaster who offered a bribe. It would be the ultimate, I think, moral justice. I'll but utopian and perfection and whatever. But I mean, that would be my takeaways. You don't have to take the bribe. Yeah. You can call out the bribe and say, I'm going to tell you who did it, but I'm also going to say that you offer me a bribe and offer me a position at Harvard if I told you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then therefore he gets justice as well. Because otherwise his ultimate decision keeps somebody in power who really shouldn't be in power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's interesting because the movie is like, the first time I saw this, none of this really, other than, wait a second, so you rat out kids or you don't rat out kids? I thought we're supposed to tell that. That was about it. And I probably just was like, okay, oh well, next movie. Yeah. Star Wars done. But watching it now, and as a parent, as a teacher and all that, I start thinking, I wrestle with this, and how will people what will they take away from that decision? And you said there is nuance and there is a situational threshold of, at what point is this just a minor prank, and at what point is this something more serious that you don't tell? And does it matter if you know the kids and are friends with them or don't know? I don't know. It's a good ethical. It's a good ethical decision for a movie.
So I'm going to switch gears and have us answer one final question before we start to get to our 3 questions. But I did want to let you guys know, and I will try to put this in the show notes for the episode, where I found the West Point Code of Honor was actually on this blog post from a website called overthinkingit.com. And it was an article from January of 2009. And the title of the article is The Ethics of Scent of a Woman, to snitch or not to snitch. And so that
would be interesting.
Yeah. So the whole article goes into, did Charlie make the right decision? So I dropped the link in our little chat here. And
yeah, good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'll be some interesting reading after the fact, because the guy the writer goes through this and he's like, okay, well, so here's the thing. Here's the bribe that's involved. Here's this. Now, if he chooses to make this decision, here are the repercussions. But if he makes this decision, here are the repercussions. And so I'll put that in the show notes if anybody wants to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So my next to last question for us is, we'll switch gears, and this is a little less deep philosophical conversation. What's your favorite scene in this movie?
But what a wonderful conversation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, seriously, what a thought-provoking. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And from the B story of the movie.
Right. Which again cycles back. You almost wish there was an extra hour of the movie to really interrogate that. But
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. Just without draw too much on it, but I think that, it's going to be an interesting read. I want to read this because it does say what we literally just talked about, but I think it kind of attacks what I was saying. I feel it does. Wait, the bribe, I feel, is an ethical red herring. That is, it seems it's important to take into account, but it's not, where I was saying it is important.
Yeah.
Think about it. If protecting your fellow students is the right thing to do, the bribe doesn't make it wrong. And if being honest with Trask is the right thing to do, the bribe doesn't make it wrong. The bribe gives us the impression that cooperating with the headmaster is immoral, but really the only immoral thing is naming names because you want the bribe. Colonel Slade actually says this in his speech. He leaves open the possibility that it's okay to cooperate with the headmaster so as long as you're not doing it to get into Harvard. At least that's my interpretation. Later in the speech, Slade says he has chosen the path. It's the right path. Most people interpret that as Charlie made the right decision in not snitching. I think actually Slade just means Charlie made the right decision in not being tempted by the bribe. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So we need part 2. So part 2 could be on Monday. He goes in and says, okay, now that that's all behind us, now you're not bribing me. These are the guys. Right?
Yeah. Oh, there's your part about West Point. Yeah. And then it goes on Busta Rhymes. Yeah. Okay. This is because that's kind of what I wasn't referring to, obviously this, but I was referring to the kind of the gang mentality, or what a lot of the Chicago cops deal with, is where there's a crime in a neighborhood and somebody saw something, but nobody says anything, whether it's out of fear or whether it's out of loyalty or whether it's out of what's your cousin, and nobody says anything. And a lot of crimes go unsolved because and keep on happening because those people remain on the street because no one's going to come forward. And I guess there was a situation, according here, where one of Busta Rhymes' got bodyguards were fatally shot and nobody would talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So they were talking about hip hop ethics in this case, but I was, thinking more gang, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of what Pat said with Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Kind of code. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that code is not a good code, in my opinion. But like you said, this is painted differently, and there's a lot of little things to think about. So it's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Good. Do we get college credit for this?
Yeah, I think so. It's
right.
It's a 3-hour course, so
you get college credit for listening to this podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
CPUs.
Yeah. Any teacher listening to this, you get continuing education credits.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring it down just a little bit. What's your favorite scene in the movie?
Well, I'm going to jump in because I'm just going to say, obviously the Carthage thing could be easy to talk about, but I think we're going to get into part of that with the 3 questions. I'm just going to say that tango scene was magnificent. I'm just going to, and I'm going to wax eloquently about it. I love that song. I think that song was called Para un Cabeza, or what the heck was that? Because I have a copy of it. I love listening. Por una Cabeza. And I love the tango. I love listening to the tango. I love the drama. I love the emotions. Tammy and I took ballroom dance lessons that we kind of fell out of once kids came along, and that's quite unfortunate. Hands down, the best dance to dance was always the tango. And I'm telling you, and I don't want this to get awkward, but I hope to all of our viewers out there, you get the opportunity at least once in your life to learn the tango and dance it with someone that you love. It is the greatest thing ever. And so that scene, and it's full of drama. It's exciting. I mean, it's emotional. It's just a great scene with a great tune. I mean, I love listening to that song. So I'm just gonna go on and on and on, but I think the tango scene is just a great scene.
This is it, but this is not the version from Scent of a Woman.
Okay.
I was trying to pull up the one from Scent of a Woman. This is okay. So the one from Scent of a Woman would not pull up on my phone because it said it's not available in your country or region. But this one is John Williams and Itzhak Perlman performing the tango from Scent of a Woman.
Yeah, I've got an album called The Tango Project. Yeah, if you look on YouTube, The Tango Project, Por una Cabeza, I think that's the one that should come up. I think it's a similar version.
Yeah.
But it's and you were talking about the bum 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 da 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 da.
Yeah.
You just get that. Yeah. I love the tango.
Yeah.
Watching Dancing with the Stars, every time they dance the tango, I like the history of the tango, the music, I like the emotional content. I like the moves. I love dancing it. And again, if I can just say, have the opportunity at least once in your life to dance the tango with someone that you care about. It's awesome. It's awesome. And this scene totally did it justice and awesome.
Which, funny enough, the actress, Gabriella Anwar, she apparently reported that Al Pacino never showed up to the rehearsals. So when they did that, because I guess she was a trained dancer, they showed up at the rehearsals, and I guess she was quoted in an interview a year or a couple years or whatever later, and she said, "Yeah, I think some of my toes are still partially broken from doing that scene with him." She's like, doing that scene with him, but what do you say? It's Al Pacino.
Yeah, that's right.
Dennis, what about you? What's your favorite scene in the movie?
It's the cliche finish with the speech at the end, I think, is a good one. I also the dynamics of the Thanksgiving scene.
Yes.
So I'm going to go, ultimately, the more memorable one for me is the big speech at the end, the "I'll show you out of order." I remember that. But watching it over again and getting through most of it is that Thanksgiving scene where, I think that scene it's a nicely done scene. There's a lot there. And I think what I'm sensing at that point, too, is he doesn't see Charlie as a kid anymore, just a kid.
Yeah.
He sees him as something because there's some defense of him, and you sort of see him notice that without saying it. So I think it's a kind of an interesting scene.
Yeah.
And I like that other actor. What's his name?
Bradley Cooper. Or not
Yes.
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley
Bradley
Cooper.
Bradley.
Yeah, Whitford. Yeah, him. He was in also My Life with Keaton.
Yep.
And he's in West Wing, obviously, and all that. But yeah, that's a good scene.
And normally in other movies, he's the one playing the jerk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to see him on the other side. For me, I think I could go with the Thanksgiving scene. I mean, it's fun, but it's so awkward to watch. I do love the car scene, though.
Yeah.
That one's just so much fun.
I was going to go there, but yeah. But he's saving it.
Yeah.
Charlie, you're sitting in a car with one very happy man right now. Stop yelling at me. I'm blind.
I picture Pat saying that a lot if he had the chance to ride in a Ferrari. You're sitting in a car with a very happy man right now.
Yeah, that's the best line is when he's just, okay, let's slow it down. I feel another gear coming on here.
Yep. All right. It's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. What is your favorite movie that features Thanksgiving as a setting? I think that one's a pretty easy pick for me. I'm going to go Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
I believe that would have been, if Bo was here, I believe that would have been his pick too.
Yeah. If Dennis unmutes, he might be agreeing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sorry, I hit my mute on that. Yeah, no, you stole the first one. I should have answered first.
Oh,
yeah. No, I think that's going to be an obvious one for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely the first one that when I read that question popped into mind.
Yeah. I don't know if I have many other. I mean, you can go to the list and scroll down just to put the variety up there. But yeah, that one's pretty awesome.
The only one I even thought of was just because another teacher had just seen this movie over the weekend and we were talking about it. There is the Blind Side where it takes place around Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving scene there. And I actually used that in my class, that scene, for some breaks in continuity when they're serving the food. And So, I mean, I literally couldn't, I had a hard time thinking of anything else that was necessarily Thanksgiving, but I'm sure there's enough out there.
Yeah. Yeah, do you really get a Thanksgiving movie? It's usually a scene in Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. What it really is has to do with that. Was Grumpy Old Men Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find a Thanksgiving movie or a Thanksgiving scene, and it's okay, cool. That Rocky, great movie. Yeah. But if you're looking for a Thanksgiving movie, I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, except for that really awkward ending, it's a great movie.
Well, yeah.
Here's what I see it. They got. I feel John Candy's smile at that end and his realization, his face, is not. He's seeing him get to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He's seeing him get to his wife, and that he played a part in helping him get home. And they finally made it there, and he sees that. So it also makes him think of his own wife that he misses. And it's more of a, I'm glad he has this, and yes, there's the sad part. It is somewhat sad, but his story is sad. His wife isn't going to be there. But I think that smile has a certain sense of, I'm glad that my friend got home to his wife, and that's important. And I do miss my wife, but I'm good. But I'm also good. Like, he is good.
See, I didn't get that sense. I didn't get that sense of I'm good.
See, I
got all the rest of that, but I didn't get the sense of I'm good.
Watch it again.
At the end, there you go. Watch it again.
No, I think.
Bo, are we crazy or?
When I say good, it doesn't mean but I think he's. I don't feel as it's that devastating.
Okay.
See, he looks down,
Yeah.
and so he sees him, and they intentionally believe.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I just didn't get that sense of.
And I don't know. I think.
Yeah.
I guess
don't
it's
get
the
that
whole
final
thing of
sense
this
of
whole
him
movie.
thinking I'm good.
This whole movie is this crazy adventure
Mm-hmm.
through all across everything to get back to his family. That's all he wants to do is get back to his family.
Right.
And I think if you just you end it when they go in and we don't know the family. Here you get a sense of how much she's also missed him. So that comes across. How much the family, the wife is sitting up on the stairs, and then not the last. He looks up, and there's that moment. I think those moments are good because it gives you a little bit of that feeling of you got there. You finally got home. And this is why he was so frustrated, wanted to get there, and he's trying to get back to his family, and he gets there. And what do you do with John Candy? He doesn't have that family.
Right.
So you could either just not cut to him and just focus on Steve Martin. But I think it's okay to focus on him, and I think it is okay to have a little bit of that sadness in there. I mean, we feel sorry for him.
Right.
Ultimately, by watching that, but he does smile, and it's not. If he would have been like and just sad and crying, the face of black, that would be horrible. But the fact that he's smiling is he's still good.
Okay.
I think he's good. I mean, yeah, it's definitely sad because he's thinking of his wife right there.
Right.
He sees him with his wife coming home, and he doesn't have that wife to come home anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just the story. That's who those characters were. We can't change that at the end. And I think by just cutting it early. I don't know. I'm okay with that decision is my point. I'm not saying that it's not necessarily sad.
Yeah.
I'm okay with them doing that.
Okay.
Because it's not overly depressing. It's, but you do get, I don't know. I think it works. I think it's a good choice.
All right. Bo, are we out of our minds?
Did you watch the ending? Have you pulled it? Because if you go YouTube, you'll be able to see the ending at some point. But you tell us what you think too at some point. But
it was definitely awkward. And I tend to agree with John that it wasn't necessary, but the more Dennis talked about
can't
it,
hear you anymore. Sorry, can't hear you. You're cutting out.
Dennis says he can't hear you anymore.
But the more I listened to Dennis, the more I saw the reason for it. I may not agree with the reason for it. I may not think it needed to be there, but I can see why some people might. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Me personally, I didn't need it, but I think my wife probably thought it was great. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I read that smile at the end of the movie a different way.
Okay.
And not that I'm a pessimistic person, but I'm usually more of an optimistic person, but I think I read that smile as I feel a little bit out of place now.
I felt it's a mixed feeling smile. It's because he looks down at first and then he looks up, and then he looks up and smiles. I think if you reverse that, he's smiling and then all of a sudden he gets sad. He looks down, and then totally different ending.
Well,
But him by kind of he's already sad and he's finding a way to fight through this. Is what I look at. And when I say fight through it, it's just he's grieving for his wife as well still, even to this day, and he always will. But he can find a way to smile through it and still move forward. And he's happy that he's got his friend to get to his wife.
I'm just teasing you, Dennis. It wasn't awkward.
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
If anybody wants to go back and find out how awkward the ending was, that was our episode number 127.
There it is.
Titled, Those Aren't Pillows. All right, so Pat, this is the one you've been waiting for. Question number 2. If you could test drive one current model car, 2022, which one would you pick?
Well, I'll defer to the gentleman from Vernon Hills over there, Dennis.
Wait, what was this question again?
I've been preparing for the question.
It has to be a current model car. So in the movie, it was a current Ferrari that they were driving. So if it was a current model car in 2022, and you could test drive any car you wanted to, what would you drive?
I'll be honest. I'm going to go with a Tesla.
Okay.
Be curious. I've heard some pretty interesting things. So
yeah.
Tesla.
Can I go? Okay, so I'm gonna ask permission for this one. Otherwise, my backup is I'm not. I've said this before. I'm not necessarily a car guy, so I don't know if you can just stick me in a car that does not have manual transmission, because otherwise I'm going to tear it up. Stick me in a car. Let me run loose. He does in the movie for a little bit. I'm probably going to pick something. Dodge Charger or a Challenger or something like that. But if I could get some permission here to cheat just a little bit, I did happen to see the other day that DeLorean is coming out with a new car later this year.
I heard about that.
Yeah. So the DeLorean, their electric car called the Evolved, is apparently coming out. They're announcing it in August of this year. So I have always loved the DeLorean as a car. So I'm gonna cheat and say I will test drive that one when they announce it later this year.
Nice.
All right. Well, the gentleman from Vernon Hills and the gentleman from Lake Forest yield the remainder of their time to the gentleman who will now spend the next hour talking about what car he would test drive.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's in a sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you, it's real easy, because my taste in automobiles tends to go, if I'm in a Ferrari, Italian cars, and I would wander over to a Lake Forest Ferrari there, John, and make an appointment, because everything is by appointment only. And I'll tell you, but you know what? The 2022, I mean, not that I'm picking up literature on what's the latest Ferrari lineup, so I'm going and looking. And I'll tell you, I sent the link out earlier. I was looking through all the different ones, and I'm, wow, check that out. Oh man, they make one with a V12. Look at this. But they make this one called, it's the Ferrari Roma. And oh my gosh, guys, it is breathtakingly gorgeous. I mean, I looked at the car, and I'm not going to lie to you. I had all the feels, and I looked over at Tammy, and I'm a little speechless here. It was literally a take your breath away moment. And
I'm glad you chose to say you had all the feels, because I thought you were going to finish that sentence with, guys, I had impure thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the Ferrari Roma is just,
I had thoughts. Bless me, Father. I had thoughts of a car of an impure nature. Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. So the Ferrari Roma, and I was reading about it, and I mean, it's an incredibly high performance car and all that. And I think almost all of Ferrari's cars are now hybrid motors, which is exciting. A lot of the hybrid is used for more high performance. But they say that it's a grand touring style. It's a little bit more subtle. And I mean, I would love to have the absolute most highest performance car, but let's be honest, I'm not some great driver that can exact every inch of potential from it. So they said that this car is great. If you're taking it out on a racetrack, it'd be great. Taking it out on twisty roads, it'd be great. Around town, it'd be great. And the thing just has so much style.
The website says it's extraordinarily fun to drive.
Yeah. And if you look at the price tag, it better be. But I spent way too much time on the little configurator tool, planning out interiors and exteriors and all that. So if I was going to test drive any car,
Pat's sitting there playing on the Ferrari website. If I were a rich man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, they're each to their own, and it's obviously those things get difficult because you can be in love with cars, but when it becomes luxury items, it's okay. Well, we're spending money on all, there's all those sides of things, but my gosh, it's a beautiful car. So all those cars are, and I'd probably do exactly what he did in the movie where he just walked around the dealer. What about this one? What about this one? What about this one?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, the Ferrari Roma was a surprise and a take my breath away moment.
So, Pat, I do apologize because here I am with my setup here for our podcast, and I did not set you up properly to be able to answer this question. Can you tell me what your pick would have been one more time?
The Ferrari Roma.
There we go.
That's funny stuff, man. That's funny stuff.
I think that's appropriate. All right. Okay. So moving on to the other really important question that's probably going to take us a while to answer. And for all the people that have been listening to this show for all the years that we've been around, they know that eventually at some point this show completely devolves into a discussion about food. So for the next hour and a half, we'll be talking about if you were to go to a restaurant and they offered you a $24. Question number 3 is, where do you go to get your perfect burger? And what are the toppings?
Go for it, Dennis.
You want me to go first? All right. Well, having obviously gone away from burgers, I could give a pass, but I'm not going to go for the pass. I'm just going to go in the present and move forward. I'm going to say Plant Power fast food in Sunset Cliffs, San Diego, which I'll be hopefully in a couple of weeks here. And they have a awesome iconic burger, they call it. And the iconic burger they have a secret sauce. And this is all vegan, by the way. So it is a vegan burger. So it's my cravings for, if I want a good kind of throwback burger type of feel, that's where I found the best. It's got crispy onions on it. It has grilled onions. You can get I throw the crispy onions on it, but it comes with grilled onions, lettuce, tomato, pickles, American cheese, secret sauce. And I would get avocado on there as well now. But that's something just a guilty pleasure type of, for somebody who's more plant-based now. Great fries. And it's just they got great shakes there. It's just all your guilty pleasures. So that's going to be mine. So Plant Power in Sunset Cliffs, San Diego. If you're nearby, check it out. Get the app. You get a free shake. Plant Power, thank you. I will take any advertising money.
So if you're in, I was looking at this one website earlier. I have not been to any of these places. It was eater.com Chicago, and they list off the 20 plus whatever best burger places in Chicago. So I found one, number 19 on here is Can't Believe It's Not Meat. And it's a place in Hyde Park, and I guess they have just a ton of different burgers that are every single thing is plant-based, and yeah. It looks good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I sent the link in the thing. You check that one out, too. It's got some pictures of the burgers and stuff. But, yeah, it's amazing. That's what they can do. But so that's going to be my go-to. And like I said, I will be there at some point soon. And that'll be one of the stops for sure with the kids.
Cool.
Patrick, what do you got?
I got no locations for you guys, and I'm sorry about that. I got this is my go-to place, which is a problem. That being said, if I went to a place and I was going to get a burger, I would probably look for, I love black bean patties. Okay. And every place kind of has their own little wrinkle on it. And again, I'm still in the sampling mode. I can't tell you an outright favorite, but I'd say a black bean burger. And then as far as the toppings on it, give me all the toppings and feel free to load it up to the point that I can't even pick the burger up. Sliced onions, tomato, the avocado sauces. I mean, I don't mind mustard, ketchup, relish, barbecue sauce. The thing that just puts it over the top, portobello mushroom, grilled portobello mushroom, put right on top. really makes it happen. I mean, I could even eat a portobello mushroom sandwich and just be fine with that. So for me, I don't have a restaurant that is, that's my go-to. But that being said, when I go to a restaurant, if I'm looking for a burger, I really like black bean burgers and then just all the toppings.
Now, Pat, you are also, if I'm correct in saying, you're relatively plant-based on things right now.
Yeah, I don't eat any meat either. Sorry, John. 67% of the podcast don't eat meat on this episode. Sorry about question number 3.
That's okay, because I make up for that.
So here's my question: how long has that been?
Oh man!
And then prior. So if you were to go to a prior good old fashioned beef burger place, what would be your? Do you know what you remember craving? I've got 2, and I'll throw one. And one's really quick, easily still available is Portillo's.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have ever been to downtown, because when I worked downtown, I would always drive by the drive-through. It was a place called Checkers.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of Checkers. It's downtown. I think it's off of Clark Street.
Okay. They've got a place.
It's called the one that I think I remember getting from there, if they still have it. The name that I think it was just simply called something the Cheese Champ or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give a burger shout out if you're around Wakanda area, not Black Panther Wakanda, but Wakanda, Illinois, Northern Lake County. There's a place called Bulldogs,
yes, that is good.
And they've got they've got a pretty awesome menu with a bunch of different things. And I don't know all their burgers. They make a lot of really good burgers, and I think they've got an all beef patty, a turkey patty. They've got different patties that they can put on there. It's been pandemic. It's been a while since we've actually been there, other than just doing takeout and stuff. They might have a veggie burger option or something like that. That I'm not 100% sure. But local, I'd have to say Bulldogs.
Okay, yeah, no,
and I should have given them a shout out anyways. Yeah, but they're awesome, just wonderful food and great atmosphere and the whole thing.
All right, so now we turn it over to the pro.
John, what do you got?
It's kind of like Pat's car question. It's
yeah.
I've been thinking about this one all day.
There was a lot of paper writing on this one. How you make your list when you have these?
You remember in 7 when they find all of his notebooks and it's the little tiny handwriting and the what's in the box? It's going to be some burgers is what it's going to be. I don't profess to be an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. I have places that I enjoy, but the moment I mention some of these, somebody's going to be like, well, that's not the best burger in the world.
We don't like those people. So you say what you want to say.
Anyway, so I'm say whatever I feel like. Now, the irony is, and because I always do these 3 questions with the family as we're having dinner before we record on recording nights, the irony is, as I was getting ready to come home from work, I got a text from the family, and it was, well, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? And it's 76 degrees outside. And I'm like, why don't I pick up some stuff? Why don't I grill some burgers? And that's what we're doing for dinner. So that's exactly what we did for dinner. So when I asked the family this question, I said, okay, here's my 3rd question for our 2nd recording tonight. Other than Dad's burger he just made and that you're currently eating, where do you find your favorite burger and what do you put on top of it? So thankfully they all said that mine was their favorite. And tonight the burgers were very good. We had some very good burgers on pretzel buns and some nice either Swiss cheese or American cheese or whatever everybody wanted, and they were very tasty. So I will say for me, my son gave a great answer earlier tonight. Growing up in Texas, we always would go to Fuddruckers a lot. Mm-hmm. And they would always have a very good burger. You know what? I'm probably going to go with one of my favorite more recent burgers. Now, I love a good, and I know some of these are just super greasy and probably kind of disgusting, but I don't care. I love a good Billy Goat Tavern burger.
Oh,
in downtown Chicago. Cheeseburger, double is better. Double is better. Triple is best, but double is better. Those are so good. I went Kuma's Corner. When I went to Kuma's Corner for the first time and got introduced to their burgers and the amazingness that is, wait, you put that on a burger? Yeah, I'll have 1 or 2 of those. So I've been there a couple of different times now, and that was actually the first time I had ever tried the burger with the fried egg on top of it and stuff like that. So I've had There I've had some of the different ones. They've got the Iron Maiden, the Metallica burger. I've had the Slayer, the Plague Bringer, all their different, always kind of heavy metal based stuff. But if I'm going to put toppings on it, a lot of times I'll try to keep it pretty simple. I'll either do Swiss cheese and some sliced up avocado. My other one is blue cheese, bacon, and barbecue sauce. Is a combination that I'll go with sometimes. But yeah, actually, when I go, that's the one time. I never made it for myself at home where I put the egg on top of the burger. But if I go to Kuma's Corner or something like that, I'll usually get the. I think that's the one that they have that's just called the Kuma burger, and that's the one that's got the bacon, the cheddar cheese, the fried egg. Yeah, basically. Well,
was that from one of the movies? Wasn't that from? Wait, what was Great Outdoors? What was the name of that?
Oh, yeah.
Old 96er.
The 96er was the steak. Yeah, it wasn't a burger, but I remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I have not been. I'm looking at this list of the fancy places that are in downtown Chicago and other options like that. I'm okay. Well, I could
mushroom and grilled onions on a burger. I didn't mention I also had mushrooms on there too. Mushrooms and grilled onions.
Okay.
I used to make a good ground when I would eat meat. It was a ground turkey burger too that I would actually make homemade, which I really loved. So I would put mine in there too. You have to mix it with a little bit of water, and it would make it moister and just That was a good one. Some garlic salt.
I am going upstairs to make food when we're done here.
But yeah, avocado on a burger, man, isn't it amazing? Once I tried that, it's like, avocado and everything. Just throw avocado in there.
Yeah.
And it's weird because when I was a kid, I did not particularly really care for avocado. I was like, well, I'm not eating that.
No.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I'll take the little pit out of the middle and we'll play baseball with it or something. But that's about it.
I would do when we'd go to Fuddruckers when I was a kid, and we'd go to Fuddruckers every once in a while. I would do I would do a burger and probably just do cheddar cheese or something on it. And I would always put, the only topping I'd ever put on it was pico de gallo.
Ooh.
And that was always pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's late at night, but I'm kind of hungry now.
Yeah.
And actually, I purposefully made a few too many burgers when I was grilling them out. I'll just take one to work tomorrow. I don't know if I'm taking one to work tomorrow. I mean,
Nope.
Give me a couple of minutes and it will be tomorrow. So technically, I will have my burger tomorrow.
Darn tootin', you're going to have your burger tomorrow.
You said you made a couple extra, so.
I did. Well, I made 3 extra.
But if you eat one, you cannot leave the other one in that fridge by itself. So.
Well, see, I made 3 extra because I was, the kids, that was they could have that for lunch tomorrow if they wanted to. I think John already ate his that was supposed to be for tomorrow. So he's already had at least 2 today.
End the podcast, eat the burger, wait 2 minutes, eat the second one. One was dinner tonight. The next one's breakfast tomorrow. Eat 2 burgers. 2 burgers in a day isn't bad. Done. Boom.
Yeah. Leave the gun, take the burger.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as usual, we've devolved into a food podcast. So at some point, I'm sure we'll do an offshoot of the 30-something movie podcast. That'll do the 30-something culinary podcast.
Yes.
Because it's kind of what we do.
Jeff and Bo, man, I'd love to hear what your burger place is there too.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I was a little sad that Jeff and Bo were not going to be able to do this tonight, but
it would have been another 45 minutes of editing for you, but
yeah, that's fine.
Just that question alone.
It's food. I'm willing to do it for food. The ethical dilemma of whether I should edit a little bit extra because we're talking about food, or I will edit extra. So, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. As always, it's always fun to talk movies with you.
Yeah, John, Dennis, great time. Great movies.
So I'll try to drop that link to that one article in the show notes if anybody wants to go take a look at it on the ethical dilemma of Scent of a Woman. Otherwise, you can go find the rest of our episodes at 30podcast.com, where you can also rate, leave a review, leave a voicemail, all that other fun stuff.
Give some
for
feedback
our show.
on that question % of the woman too. I'd be curious what the thoughts are out there. Is the ethical? I know we raised the whole philosophical discussion there.
Yeah.
Does it? Hope that doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the movie. I don't think it does.
No, I don't think so.
One of those pieces when we walk away where you, what is that? So I'd be curious to see what all you fans out there think, and all you moviegoers.
Well, and like you guys said, we don't know if Charlie made the right decision. were never shown if he made the right decision. So if you're listening to this, we would love to hear from you. Did Charlie make the right decision in Scent of a Woman? So,
and if so, what made it right?
Right.
Yeah.
So give us a call, leave a voicemail, send us a note on Twitter, email us, whatever you want to do. But we would love to hear from you because we're kind of curious. So,
and like I said, we'll give you some college credit at CPDUs.
College credit, or we'll share burger recipes with you.
Yeah.
Either way, or we'll take pictures of ourselves eating burgers and tweet it. I don't know. I'm going to be too busy eating to take a picture. Our next episode's coming up. We're going to finish off the month of March with The Bodyguard is our last movie for the month of March. And then April starts off with Patriot Games, Under Siege, A Few Good Men, and Universal Soldier. Our Patreon, if you are one of those Patreon co-executive producers, you would have access then to our April Patreon movie, which is High Noon from 1952. And then in May, we've got our musicals and animation month. And that's going to be Noises Off, Newsies, Aladdin, and Cool World, with our Patreon episode being Singin' in the Rain from 1952. So all kinds of good stuff coming. All right.
Nice.
Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you back here next time for The Bodyguard. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Go have a burger, too, or 3. Who cares? We'll see you back here next time.